Hello, everybody, and welcome to Write Something Weird. I'm Sophie Stern, and I'm here today with two wonderful guests. We are going to be talking about the purity culture to author pipeline, and this is an episode that I'm really, really excited about. But I'd love to give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. So, Al, could we start with you?
Yeah, I am Al. I write under A.L. Davidson. I am a genre romance author that does horror, sci-fi, monster, and paranormal romance.
I love it. I love that you write so much. That's always really fun. Vanessa, what about you?
I'm Vanessa Kramer. I am a multi-genre author. I write dark fantasy, romance, including contemporary and dark romance, and I am currently writing a horror story, so I'm all over the place.
Yay.
I like that. It's so fun to get to talk to other creators who kind of like bounce around and try lots of different things. I think that's really, really fun.
It's so much fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it
good
is.
time. And speaking of fun, the first thing I wanted to launch us with is what exactly is purity culture? Because I feel like everybody kind of has a different perception of what that means. So what does that mean to you? So when someone says purity culture, what comes to mind?
The
Waiting till
Jonas Brothers.
marriage.
Okay, so I think that we're on the same page. Yeah, and I would extend that even more. I think for me, like it's definitely also the surrounding idea of not just
Mhm.
waiting till marriage, but like the I Kiss Dating Goodbye books, the and the Bride Wore White books, this idea of our value being like tied to our sexual choices. Would you agree with that?
hmm Oh yeah, the true love waits rings that we wore.
Yep.
Yeah.
The clothing,
Okay,
the
so we
clothing
all we
items.
all did that.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, the clothing choices.
hmm
So, how did becoming a writer influence or impact your connection to purity culture? So, I know we talked a little bit over email about this, but for me, growing up in purity culture, I was always told romance books in particular are really bad. They're sinful. They're going to ruin your marriage. I wasn't allowed to read like Judy Blume books growing up because that fell outside of purity culture. Um, so for both of you, was there an influence? Did you already like step away from purity culture when you started writing or what did that look like for you?
I'll let Al go first.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I grew up pretty much Southern Baptist, even though I was in Missouri. So it was very weird, strict like stuff, and we were homeschooled, so I had a lot of
Yeah.
parents watching things and being very observant. But then I found the OG fanfiction.net. I was on Quizilla, and that was where it all went downhill after that. And
Oh
so it was
no.
I was very young when I realized it. I'm like, this is not necessarily the vibe for it. I was like, I am interested in this sort of stuff and I like this sort of stuff. And I started writing when I was 10, 11 years old. And but after COVID and when I started writing again in my late 20s and I was a little bit more established as me, I was like, I can do what I want. Nobody's gonna tell me no. And it's interesting because it helped me then figure out my own sexuality with things. And even though I grew up in it, it's like I'm very asexual. So for me, it's like, oh, this is more of a fun thing for me to like live out all the things I didn't get to experience and didn't have any want to
Yeah.
experience or was told was bad in kind of a safe, fun environment with things. So it was pretty early on when I realized that this sounds stupid, but I have very nice parents, so I'm gonna behave.
No, I love that answer a lot. And I feel like for me too, like when I would write things, every once in a while I would write a line and be like, wait, why did I say that? Like, why did
Yep.
I write that? Do I actually feel this way? Or I'd have an editor be like, what did you mean by this? And I kind of had like that brain switch of being like, reel back. What did I mean by that? But Vanessa, what about you?
So I grew up Catholic. I went to a Catholic school. I was an altar girl, went through like all the like First Communion, which looking back at that now that I've like distanced myself from the church, I think First Communion is kind of weird because the little girls wear essentially like a little bride dress And just the connection of the church and what is expected of girls and women versus what's expected of the boys into men is just so like different. I'm trying not to cuss, sorry.
You
It's
you
just
actually can if you would like to. That is fine. As much
okay.
as you want. We're
It's
all
so
grown-ups here.
fucking different. It's so different because like our value is in our purity and our like cleanliness and being a little lady and just all these expectations. And then you grow up around like the, well, boys will be boys. That's just
Yeah.
how boys think. And, you know, I always heard the term growing up, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? And so, like, once you give your virginity away, there's no value in you anymore. You're just trash to be like tossed around to all the different boys. And so, luckily for me, I'm just stubborn and I just didn't have any interest in sex because of my own. Like, not anything to do with like purity culture, like scaring me or anything, but like I was just like, oh, all these boys want this from me, and I'm no. Which now, as an adult, I'm like that heavily feeds into my BDSM, like dominating, like I will give you what you want when I want to do it. Like I am in control. And in my writing, it's progressed so much because, like Al said, fan fiction was my gateway into being more comfortable with that because my mom was very on top of what I got from the library. She
Yep.
was very like over my shoulder, like seeing what I was reading, what I was watching. And so I would get on these like Twilight fan fictions, and it was like the dirty stuff that I wasn't allowed to read. And I was
Yeah.
like, why is this so bad? Like, it's fun and it's exciting, and it like opens your mind to all these things that you didn't know could happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I started writing my own stuff, I didn't want to put smut or spice, whatever term you want to use, like, into my books because I thought more people would be open to reading it if it didn't have that in there. And today I released a BDSM themed dark romance. So I've definitely become more open and comfortable with writing it, obviously.
Well, and I like that you use the word comfortable, right? Because I feel like so much of purity culture is about making women uncomfortable
Hmm.
for
Yes.
men to be comfortable or to
Yes.
feel like they are in a position of authority and being in charge. And I think it's really interesting how like all of our writing journeys have kind of changed. And you both mentioned, fan fiction. I'd never read a lot of fan fiction, but I remember reading like my first romance when I was in my early 20s, and a friend recommended something to me. And I never thought I would write romance. I always thought I'd be like a cozy mystery author or a children's author. And I just thought, I just know that romance can like really damage your marriage, right? Or just really like destroy your relationship. Like I heard that so many times. But what actually happened is I read a romance where the couple has a huge fight and then they talk to each other and they communicated with each other. And it was sexy and fun, but especially like BDSM romance, I feel like there's such an emphasis on communication and not
Yes.
guesswork
Hmm.
that for
Yes.
me, like coming from purity culture and being like, oh, you can actually talk about your expectations.
Yep.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, it's really interesting as we like get older and like I feel like get some distance from that as well. Like that can kind of change our perspectives also.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So do either of you currently write fan fiction, or are you more heavily into like just traditional storytelling spaces right now?
Now,
I've n-
traditionally, storytelling.
yeah. I've never written fan fiction. I was a more of a consumer of it, but I do
Yeah,
have a lot
yeah.
of things that with my overactive imagination that's like it's actually a BDSM supernatural crime series that I have. And it
Cool.
was inspired by my obsessive period of Supernatural, where I was like self-inserting characters in my head. So it's like it kind of like has the flavor of starting to
Yeah,
be a fan fiction type of thing that leads into stuff. But no, I was more of a consumer of the fan fiction, writing my own stories with the vibes and aesthetics and themes of tropes that I liked from the manga that I was reading or the anime that I was
that's
watching and
cool.
things like that.
I love that. So, do either of you, it sounds like we all kind of like stepped back from the church and then kind of leaned into writing. Has writing helped you kind of come to terms with your own experiences in purity culture?
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my great series is heavy on religion. It has a lot of dark religious themes, and I took a lot of my own personal religious trauma and put it into those books. And then my friends who have experienced different things within the church. The first book has like a conversion therapy traumatic experience in it because that was something part of my upbringing. Like, if you end up being gay, we're going to have to
Yeah.
get you help and fix that. And that's another thing, like, not only with my like coming to terms with sexuality and like sex being an okay thing and being like comfortable to talk about and write about and read about, like the queer aspect of it too. Like, not only are you supposed to like protect your virginity, but it is in an even smaller box of straight virginity.
Yeah.
And so like just the evolution through writing has helped me become so comfortable with who I am as a person and with like the people that I've chosen to be my community now versus
Yeah.
what I was forced to be in as a kid.
Well, and I love that you brought up like the queer angle too. And Vanessa and I spoke at Queer Inc. last year, and I think that we both had very similar stories as far as not realizing that like bisexuality is a thing, right?
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
know for me, like I always thought I was pretty good at purity culture, and I always thought I was really, really good at waiting until marriage. And it wasn't until later that I realized, hey, part of being bisexual is, maybe not, maybe it wasn't just I was supposed to be saving myself for a man. Maybe my life was a little more complex than that. But
Exactly.
Al, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting because I didn't realize my own sexuality and the stuff that I was doing until I started writing, and I was writing my very first non-binary gender fluid character and writing my first sex scene that I was sitting there going, "Oh, I think I relate to this a lot more than I thought I would," and it makes a lot of sense, but it's even going tying back to the whole church aspect of things. It's like Vanessa knows, I have a lot of gay priests. I have a lot of religious themes in my stuff too, and it's one of those that, as someone who leans more interior trans masc and exterior femme, it's kind of an interesting, nice relief for me too to be able to go, oh, these are the experiences that I have internally and have had for, 3 decades at this point, to be able to put it out onto paper and then literally have them wrestling with those demons and things. And because it's like I've stepped away from the church, but I haven't stepped away from my faith, but I do it on my own terms, where it's
Yeah.
kind of like this is the stuff that makes
Exactly.
sense for me now. And so it's kind of like a nice way to experience that and do my own aspects with through my writing and going, yeah, this is the stuff that I am and the stuff that the reason that I'm is like prefer men, but also wish that I was the man in the relationship kind of thing. And it's
Yeah.
interesting how once you have the time to sit down and like put it into words, that you can really learn a lot where it's like, yeah, there's a little piece of you that goes into every single character and every single
Yeah.
story. And sometimes you realize that there's a lot of you that has gone into a story or a character. So it's very therapeutic. I always say that it's very cathartic when I'm like putting a character through something I've experienced and working through, and just then instead I'm there like, oh, now I'm crying because I've like realized I've unlocked a trauma I didn't know I've had, and now we can heal through having them face a giant demonic entity on the property kind of thing. So it's very
I know it's
therapeutic.
always interesting when like a reader will be like, "Oh my gosh, this part in this book when the character goes through that, that's terrible. I can't imagine if someone went through that." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
Let's
yeah,
go
it
on.
is terrible."
How did I come up with that?
I know.
Strange. Well, and I think that's like such a good point to bring up, though, because I feel like a lot of times, at least for me, when I was growing up in purity culture, I would have like really weird moments, right? Like really weird things that were said to me, or like just really things that I think are so strange looking back, like the true love waits ring, right? Like the purity rings, like the open conversations with youth leaders about like how far you've gone with your partner. Like all of
Yeah.
those things are really weird.
Yeah.
And for me, I definitely like I was so close to the situation that once I got some distance and started writing, a lot of things came to the surface for me. And it kind of sounds like that may have happened for both of you as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vanessa,
Yeah,
you
I
look a
went
little scared.
to, yeah, well, because I remember going to church camp one summer and I was dating a boy who the following year was going to go to college to become a pastor. And so I was on the path to become a pastor's wife.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
remember we went to this church camp and they sucked me in because they're like, you get to pick these classes. And so I picked photography, acting, and writing, obviously.
Cool.
And I really liked the aspect of these classes being a form of worship. Like, worship doesn't have to be like being in church, reading a Bible, singing
Hmm.
worship songs. Like, you can worship God through your God-given talents. And
Hmm.
I've always stuck with that. Like, I really love that still
Yeah.
part of religion or faith or whatever. But I remember we had a night where the girls were separated from the boys. And so the girls went into one auditorium and the boys went to another auditorium. And our girl class was we watched a clip from The Notebook, and that no, that movie is not risque at all. It is not dirty or
Yeah.
anything. And so we watched this clip, and then it ends, and we're all like clapping and going like, "Yeah!" And then the woman pastor basically told us how wrong it is to expect that kind of like intensity and passion and like wanting a man, especially if you're like already devoted to another man and like having these dirty, like perverted thoughts and all that stuff. And it like we basically sat there for like 2 hours and felt like shit about
Yeah.
like what naturally happens to people. And I asked my boyfriend, I was like, okay, what was your guys' thing like? Because ours was horrible. And he was
Yeah.
like, it was basically like you're gonna have desires and needs, so just be careful with them. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's it? Like, it's gonna
Yeah.
happen, so just like be careful. Whereas we got taught like, no, don't do it. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting all the weird conversations that happen in like the youth group or church camp settings that really kind of like layer sex with shame and sexuality with
Yes.
shame. And Vanessa, you like unlocked a memory for me, but I had this youth pastor who was always talking about like blowjobs, like all the time, and was like, oral sex is so gross. Like a woman should never do this for a man. It's wrong. Men really, really want this, but it's just disgusting. And even as a teenager, I just remember being like, I don't know, it kind of sounds like kind of fun. I don't think gross is the word that I will be using. But then,
Right.
you read romance novels and like not all blowjobs are created equal, right? Like there are different
Yes.
layers and levels and things you can do and tricks. And so it's really interesting to have like this one group that's like it's so bad and dirty and weird, and then you pick up a good romance novel and it's like actually it does bring you closer together.
Yes.
So Al, what about you? Any other youth group trauma that we've brought to the surface?
Yeah, it's interesting because I graduated so much earlier than all the rest of my peers. I did all 4 years of my high school in 9 months. So I was a graduate of high school before I turned 15. So I was like
Okay,
way ahead of, especially the men, because they're just dumb at that age anyway. And so I was like
fair.
way far ahead. So I didn't really have much experience. I was very introverted. I'm like, I just want to sit. I was the kid that's like, I'm just gonna sit and write. I don't need friends. I don't need to be going to church. After my parents passed away, then I got really heavily involved in things. And I
Yeah.
remember very distinctly that I went to a mega church. It was one of those that had buses that shuttled you to the door, and they had a
Wow.
separate building like with an elevator and three floors for just the high schoolers, and like it was a big fancy, like they bring
Yeah.
in $30,000 in tithes every weekend levels of mega church.
Wow.
Okay.
And I had my first boyfriend kind of at that time, and I had they had put me in part of their therapy group for after my parents passed away. And I remember one very specific afternoon when I was there talking to her, and she spent the last 15 minutes of our session for my supposed trauma of losing both my parents, teaching me how to ensure that the guy that I had a crush on at the time wouldn't be interested in going further than holding my hand because I had too much else going on. And I remember the advice that she gave me will stick with me it'll haunt me forever. She's like, never shave above your knee because then that way if he touches you, he's going to be grossed out. And whenever you're going on a date, make sure that you're wearing dirty underwear that's flipped inside out so you'll feel repulsed enough with yourself that you want him to come near you. And I'm sitting there going, what does this have to do with my parents dying?
Oh my
I was like,
gosh.
what's happening here? I was like, why am I paying you money to be here for
Yeah.
this? But my that same boyfriend, we were supposed to go on a mission trip to somewhere in Eastern Europe, and he ended up being able to go, but I was told that I wasn't allowed to go because I was too much of a mess and too intense in the relationship that I was going to make him stumble. And yet he went to go to a sex addict conference over the weekend, and still he was like, oh, you're forgiven, you're just having temptations from her because she's such a mess emotionally right
Yeah.
now. And so that was one of the parts that led to our breakup, because I was doing the whole pastor's wife thing. It was gonna be a music pastor's wife thing, and we were together and we had rings and went to premarital counseling. And then it was one of those of like, oh, she's going to cause you problems on your mission work, so she has to stay here. And he's just like, okay, bet, I'm gonna go anyway and do live my rock star dreams in Eastern Europe. And so yes, that's it's just crazy about how the way that they treat things at any age of high school, because we were in college-ish age at that
Yeah.
point, getting to it, and just how deeply ingrained it is in everything. And then after that, I was
Yeah.
like, well, being with you sucked and it was not fun anyway, so I don't really think I need to have a boyfriend or have any sort of
Yeah.
things. And then I would just delve back into writing, and I was like, oh, this explains a lot of why I didn't like being with you.
Yeah.
So fun stuff. We love the fun stuff.
Well, that story had some twists and turns.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the thing I find so crazy and weird is the amount of involvement adults had in the sex lives of teenagers. Like, I feel like that's weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, even bringing up like the here's how to make someone not attracted to you. I feel like a lot of purity culture, especially when we compare it to like books, so much of purity culture is about like not not making anyone like stumble. Whereas I feel like in romance books, there's a lot more autonomy and being like,
yeah,
we can all make our own decisions, we can all make our own mistakes. We are responsible for us. Whereas I feel like so much of purity culture is like, hey, if you look too pretty, this person might want to fuck you. And that's
Hmm.
that's your fault for looking so good.
yeah,
Now the whole, well, what was she wearing?
Yeah.
Whenever something happens to a woman, it's always like, well, was she leading him on?
yeah.
What was
Mhm.
she doing?
So, do either of you intentionally write like consent scenes in your stories based on your own experiences with purity culture?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
What does
That
that look
is
like for you?
it's one of the biggest things about, especially my characters, for because I tend to have a very specific dynamic of a smaller individual, and then what my fans have started calling the big old baby girl husbands. So that the
Mhm.
big himbo-ish type of things that can obviously overpower and dominate. And so for me, everyone always tells me that they're all consent kings, because there's the talking and there's making sure things are okay. And for me, that's very important, especially in writing as much queer literature as I do because that's
Yeah.
not often found in queer literature, especially in like the comics and things like that. There's a lot of assaults going on. And so for me to make sure that it's like, oh, there's consent and talking and they're setting ground rules and safe words and it's a very key and important part of it because I think it's something that definitely needs to be done. And it's also, it is sexy because then they can play
Yeah.
with it and they can have more fun with it. And I think that's honestly for me more fun than actually writing the actual smut part of the book is
Yes.
the lead up to it because it's fun for me. It's a build up for the characters, it's a build up for the moment, and it makes it 10 times better because you've had this like nice lead up and it's like, oh, they're talking. It's like you said, they can talk it out and they can communicate and I think it just makes it more fun personally.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think consent can be really hot when you have like those like communication moments, but I don't think it's the act of necessarily like asking permission. I think part of
Yeah.
it is like saying what you want
Yep.
and seeing
Hmm.
if they also want that and
Yep.
just like admitting it.
Yep. 100%.
Vanessa, what
I
do you think
have,
consent look
yeah,
like
I
for
was gonna
your
say,
for your characters?
yes, yes. Okay, so the book that just released today, I wanted to do a dark romance, but not what I usually read, where it's the more like forward, aggressive man who meets this woman who comes to terms with like things that she didn't realize that she wanted. I want to do
Mhm.
the opposite. So the story is a couple who kind of has like a whirlwind romance and they get engaged really quick into their relationship. And he's kind of a himbo type character too. And she's like very like independent, very like career driven. And he finds out that she used to be a professional dominatrix.
Mhm.
And at first he's like, whoa, that's a lot. That's very intense. And she was like, okay, so it was okay when you thought I was just like sleeping around with random guys, but because I'm like a professional and this is my job and this is what I like doing and this is something that I'm in control of, now you have a problem with it. And so the story is the man coming to terms with things that he didn't realize that he wanted to do and he's never felt comfortable like opening up about. There's a pegging scene and like they have this moment where they're talking about like, well, what do you want to try? What are you not comfortable with doing? Like the safe word. Safe words are so important, especially in the BDSM community, because you want the person to feel safe with you. And if you get to the point where it's no longer safe or enjoyable, like you have to let the other person know that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
really, really wanted that to be an important part of the story because yeah, there's sex and it's dirty and it's fun and it's raunchy, but it's also sensual with the open communication and like
Yeah.
being together in a relationship and getting to that level of comfort to like want to give the other person what they've never felt comfortable being open about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. I love the idea of sex being comfortable for everybody and being fun for everybody.
Mhm.
And I feel like BDSM literature or really romance books in general tend to do a pretty good job of like leveling the playing field.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I like that we're all in
Yeah, because
agreement so much. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, when we were growing up, part of the purity culture is like it's never about like what makes the woman feel good. It's just, making sure you are being good to the man and
Mhm.
having babies. Like that was basically like what we're here for is making sure you're serving the head of the house, which is the man. And he was always like the head priesthood of the house and to like has to be the successor of the house,
Yep.
and the woman is there to keep the husband happy and have the babies. And so reading and writing stuff where both parties are like having fun and pleased and comfortable with what they're wanting, like I don't know, we need more of it.
Yeah.
I agree. And it's so funny that you brought up like the head of household. I remember right after I got married, so I grew up in a very like conservative Christian home and my husband didn't. But we had like our faith was very similar. And but with my like purity culture background, I remember having a conversation and being like, "Well, you're the head of the household, so you have to like make all the decisions." And he was like, "What?" He was like, "I don't want to do that."
It's the
And
same in our
so,
house.
really, yeah, I just remember it being like, I feel like so much of that culture is just a lot of pressure. And then we dive into writing and the pressure is gone, right? Like we can write whatever we want. The characters can feel whatever they want. Vanessa, you mentioned safe words. So even if our characters get into a position where they're not having fun anymore, like that's okay too. We can have characters that feel afraid or uncomfortable
Mm,
or embarrassed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, is there anything else either one of you wants to say about purity culture and writing that we did not talk about yet? Any other final thoughts? I think for
Mm,
me, it's just really nice to know that I'm not alone and that we've all had like this shared experience of growing up one way and then really coming into our own and
yeah.
discovering like our queer identities and our sexuality and kind of accepting ourselves. I know for me, I often felt like a total weirdo, even at church. And so I like that in the author community, like that's okay.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I
Like Al
agree.
said, it's so therapeutic. It helps with your mental health on a different level. Just
Yeah,
getting it out there, whether it's something that you've personally gone through that you like have your character go through, or something that you've thought about and your character gets to experience something you haven't
Yeah.
gotten to experience. Like
yeah,
it's just it makes you feel, like you said, normal. Even
yeah,
though these people don't exist, they're people that you're making up in these scenarios that you're making up, but like it makes you feel like an okay person finally.
yeah,
For the
Yeah.
church did not.
yeah,
Yeah. And
for
it gives you
sure.
the freedom to learn more and research more and like look things up that you would have never thought about before, which helps again the learning and healing process for you, but also just kind of like making connections and community and finding other authors that do the same thing and groups that talk about weird things that you never thought about before. And it's
Yeah,
like I'm not a part of it, but I had now have like somehow become wrapped up in the furry community and I'm like, You're not as weird as I thought you all were. You're actually really kind of cool." And you just one of those things of having open conversations about literally anything. 'Cause it's like you don't know everything. And you gives you
yeah,
cool excuses to learn cool new things and talk to people about their experiences. And it's a fun way to continue to grow even once you get to the point where you're beyond the normal
yeah.
educational side of things and learn more about yourself and others and the people in your life and your relationships and romance. And it's fun. It's a good time.
I love that. I think the name of the episode should be You're Not As Weird as I Thought You Were. I really like
Yes.
that.
You don't want to make it not all blowjobs are created equally, because that
You're
was a
right.
solid line.
Okay. Maybe we'll see. I'll flip a coin later and see where I land. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you both for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And I hope that I get to see you both soon.
Yes.
Yeah, I love you
Yay.
guys.
Love you guys.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.